I do see some team leaders, so maybe they're grouped together. But anyways, let's begin. Hi everyone again, and welcome to your business case workshop for this year's IEO. As you all aware, business cases has always been a very, very important part of the IEO, and it is, also one of the most exciting parts. And this year, we are very glad to, and very, very fortunate to have Jinzhou and his firm helping us with developing the case. And the case is on ESG. And I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate Jinzhou, as well as the firm he's representing, the Prestige and Fortune Fintech. Jinzhou is the main author of this case. So he is definitely the right person to give you guys a workshop, and hopefully with this workshop, it will help you to do very, very well. All right. Let me unmute Jinzhou. Okay. Yeah, Jinzhou, you should be good. Okay, cool, awesome. So let's begin. So I'll have Jinzhou take away.
Oh, so I think the host, I need the permission from host to share the screen.
Share the screen. Yes, you can do that now.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so everyone can see my screen, right? Okay, so hello everyone, and oh yeah, okay. So hello everyone, welcome to the IEO competition 2022. And I'm glad you guys are here, and I'm really honored that I have an opportunity to do the workshop here. And today I want to talk about ESG and sustainability. And I also want to do a brief introduction about myself and what I'm doing. So my name is Jinzhou Fan, and I'm from Prestige and Fortune Fintech. Now I'm currently a ESG researcher and consultant in PA2F. Our business focusing on the ESG consulting, ESG data, and ESG service in China. And as you see, your business case this year will be about the ESG. So I will give you a brief workshop about what is ESG and what is climate change and carbon reduction. And I will show you what we usually do when we are doing the ESG analysis. And also I will give you several hints about your business case, and I hope you guys enjoy the workshop and also the competitions. So when we're talking about ESG, I first want to start with the origin of the ESG, why we need to care about that. So when we're looking back several decades ago, we find out we got a really fast industrial revolution. We have the steam engine to electricity, and then now we have advanced tech, IT technology, the big data. But now we find that the speed industrial revolution really changed our life, the way we're thinking, the way we're acting, and also a lot of things. But at the same time, it will also cause some disaster and cause some problem. So in 21st century, human beings are facing some severe global energy and sources crisis, and also global ecological and environmental crisis, and also global climate change crisis. Those are things following by the fast industrial revolution, because we developed too fast and we didn't consider the environment, the poverty, and the equity or something else. Equality. So we need a change. We need a fourth industrial revolution, that's green industrial revolution. So we need when we are doing our development, we need ecological harmony. We need to improve the efficiency of our production. We want a better environment to make sure our development is not only fast, it can last for long term and pass those development and good environment to our next generation. So that's why we need to consider the sustainability and the ESG. So what is ESG? So I say this word because ESG is a combination of three sustainability factors: the environmental factor, the social factor, and the corporate governance factor. So how ESG burns? The term ESG first appeared in 2004 in the report of UN sponsored initiative. So this report called Who Care Wins. If you have time, I recommend you to read this. This is really interesting. And in that, and from that time to now, the ESG system and ESG theory developed a lot. And the ESG is basically focusing on the non-financial factors to mitigate the risk and achieve long-term wealth when we are forming our investment strategy. So the conventional financial factors, for example, we read the financial report, and those are basically focusing on the short-term benefit, the short-term profit. But when we are considering the ESG factor, we need to consider the environmental impact, the social impact, and the corporate governance. We are looking for a long-term return. So that's a little bit different. And when we're looking at the long-term profit, and that time we need to consider the sustainability development of a company, of our investment, and the whole world. Okay, so let's take an example for each section of the ESG. The first one will be the environment. So there's a lot of things included in the environmental factors like the climate change or other things. So I give several examples here. For example, those are pretty familiar for us, I believe. The global warming, the plastic pollution, the energy crisis, and water resources. So those are things you always heard from the news, from the newspaper, from the media, from the television program, right? And let's take one like the global warming as an example. Why we have to consider the environment as the one factors in our sustainability investment. So for example, if we have a company is doing its business activity, it will release the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And those carbon dioxide will cause the global warming. So that's the impact from the company to the environment, right? But at the same time, some company may include some supply chains pretty vulnerable to the temperature. For example, the frozen business or the transportation. So those companies are pretty vulnerable to the global warming risk. So that means there is still some impact from the environment back to our business. So when we're considering our investment and the sustainability development, we need to consider the environmental problem. So you can see this is a two-direction impact. The business have the impact on the environment, and also the environment will have the impact back to our business. And there's another factors, the social factors. So the social factors, for example, like the community, when you're doing the investment, you need to consider how the company helping people in the community where they are, and whether they do the health care to their employee, whether they manage the supply chain risk, and also whether they take care of the product quality. So the main idea for the social factor is basically whether this company consider the relationship between the company business and the people who connect with that. And the third one will be the corporate governance. The corporate governance, like the board composition, the tax, the corruption problem, and independence. For example, when you're considering the board composition, you want to know one company, what's the composition for your board? Have you ever considered how many people in the board? And have you ever considered the gender equality or the race equality, etc.? So those three factors combined together forms the system of ESG. So how ESG works? First of all, we have a lot of company. The company will, based on a checklist, to collect the ESG data, and then finally they will form a ESG report. And then we have other companies for ESG analysis service, for example, the consulting company or the IT company. They will analyze the ESG report, and then they find something from that report and generate a suggestion or recommendation. Some suggestion will back to the corporate and help those companies to improve their sustainability and help them to improve their ESG performance. And also there's some suggestion will go to the investor section and help those investor to form the investment strategy. So that's how ESG works. And for now, this is basically the background of the ESG. And now I want to talk about the climate change, because your business case is about the carbon dioxide, the carbon reduction. So climate change is a really important topic, not only in your business case, but also in ESG. The climate change is one part in environmental factor of ESG, and why we care about climate change. So here is some pictures about climate change. I believe most of you have heard about the global warming, and it caused a huge disaster, right? So people find our high-speed industrial revolution has caused such a big change, and we are really facing some difficult and tough challenging right now in the climate change. For example, it will cause the fire, the flood, and it will cause the problem on the diversity of animal species or so. So people find, no, we cannot do it anymore. We cannot let the temperature rise again. So fortunately, nations get together, and we decided that we have to make the change. So nations get together to sign an agreement called Paris Climate Agreement, and this agreement is for all human beings to facing the climate change and such challenging. And you can see, I give the picture here. There's a lot of company also announced that they will commit to the sustainability development and also try to reduce their carbon emission and even to achieve the carbon neutral. And not only the company, nowadays, there's a lot of campus and university and other organizations doing the same things. So you can see here, this is Princeton, right? And I believe some of you, this is a dream school. This is a dream university in the future. And also other, the Pittsburgh University, they commit that they will also achieve a carbon neutral by some specific year, and they will do their they will give their effort in sustainability development. So how can we achieve the zero emission? So I want to explain what is zero emission first. The zero emission means as a company, your business activity won't release any additional carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So that means your business activity won't cause a further climate risk when you're doing whatever the trade or you're doing the transportation. So how can we achieve this? First of all, it's divided into two steps. The first step will be the emission reduction. So that means we try to reduce the carbon dioxide we release into the atmosphere. Some company have different method. They may use innovation design to optimize their procedure to reduce the carbon emission. They use circularity. They use low carbon materials to produce their product. They use the renewable energy, electric vehicles, or other method to reduce the carbon emission to a pretty low level during their business activity. But even though that, we cannot make the carbon dioxide down to zero because we need electricity and we need to drive the car and burn some fossil fuel. So what should I do? Okay, so this is the next step. We absorb some carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So you can see here, this is the carbon dioxide we release into the atmosphere. And this part is the carbon dioxide we absorb from the atmosphere. And when we plus these two steps together and we try to achieve the zero emission. So for the offset part, some company may do some green investment. They help to planting trees or other works. And also they may develop some technology which can absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere directly. Okay, so this is the background for the climate change and how we face those challenges and what we will do nowadays. And let's go back to your business case. So when we're doing the ESG analysis, what do we usually do? So this is a framework for me for the ESG analysis to finally generate the ESG recommendation. So I will explain to you one by one. It's separated into 6 steps. The first one will be the task analysis. So the first step is the most critical one. You have to understand the question. You have to understand the requirement from your clients. And this is super important because sometimes the people will forget what they are doing. And sometimes you put a lot of effort, but you find out that you're doing things wrong at the beginning. So first of all, you have to understand what task you're doing and what's the question. Sometimes you need to decompose the question into several keywords. And maybe you don't understand the meaning of the keywords. So you also need to search for the definition. And then when you completely understand what you're doing and what's the task you need to solve, and you can, for example, assign a goal or a target for yourself for the ESG analysis. And the second one is to know what's the risk and opportunity when you're looking at a company. Why this is the second part? Because the risk and opportunity is the origin of the ESG. The ESG is a tool to mitigate the risk, whatever the risk is, climate risk or the social risk or the governance risk. So this is the origin of the strategy, the origin of the practice, origin of everything in ESG. So this is the second step you need to identify. So maybe you need to read the ESG report of a company and you think, what's the risk and what's the opportunity for this company, for this industry, and whether those risks and opportunity are mentioned in their ESG report or so, or maybe you have other works to do. But first, please focusing on the risk and opportunity. And the third one is you need to focus on focusing on the strategy and plan. So the strategy and plan is work for the risk management. So you have already know what's the risk and opportunity for the industry, for the company you're analyzing, and then you need to check whether they have strategy or plan to manage their risk and to apply the opportunity. So maybe sometimes you need to ask yourself, what's the strategy of this company and what's the plan for this company? Oh, here is a hint. So strategy refers to a long term, and plan refers to the short term. So the strategy works for the risk and the plan works for the strategy. So we cut the strategy into several short term, and we made a plan to make sure us can achieve the strategy. And also sometimes we read ESG report, we want to find some specific plan because we want to make sure whether the plan is effective and useful, and whether the plan is quantitative and readable. Those are so important in ESG report. And number 4 will be the practice. So we know what's the risk and what's the strategy works for the risk, and then how can we realize our strategy and plan? And we need to check the practice of the company from the ESG report, because practice is to realize the plan and the strategy. Maybe we need to identify what's the action for the company. We need to maybe sometimes classify their actions to make us easy to understand. And we are trying to find maybe some connection between the action and the plan, and whether our action can really help us to realize the plan we want to do or so. And number 5, we read all this message and we collect them, we classify them, and then we do the analysis. For example, we may validate the strategy, whether the strategy is effective to the risk management. We also validate the plan, whether our plan can really help us to get to the strategy goal, whether the practice is feasible for us to achieve our plan. And sometimes we need a quantification here. We also need to calculate the cost. Maybe we want to know whether your plan is feasible, not only from like your business, but also from the profit angle or some other interesting angle. And sometimes you need estimation because some data you cannot get and you have to do some assumption, you have to do some estimation here. So analysis here is pretty various, and I recommend you to be open and creative, because ESG concerns the ESG the environmental factors, the social factors, and corporate governance. So there's a lot of things mixed into the ESG system. When you're analyzing an ESG report, when you're analyze the ESG performance of a company, there's a lot of things you need to focus on. So be open and be creative is really important in ESG analysis. Sometimes you will find something that is really specific, but it's not it's really important for the risk management. So number 6, the last one will be after your analysis of the ESG, and you will generate ESG recommendation. Maybe you will give some suggestion to the strategy to say, oh, your strategy is not good. I suggest you do this 1, 2, 3, or you can give some suggestion on the plan as well. You say, okay, your strategy is good, but your plan, there's some off with your plan, and I suggest 1, 2, 3. Or you can also validate or give some suggestion on the practice. You find a more you find a better method from other company or other place, or you came out with yourself and you can just suggest them about the practice. And also you can suggest on their ESG report, you say, okay, you did a really good job, but you did a really bad writing. And I suggest you can do some place here. You can improve your writing here. So those are the last step for the ESG recommendation. So I will give you an example. If I want to evaluate the water resource risk of Apple, and what I usually do, the first step will be the data sourcing. So you have to find the data and information enough to support your analysis. So you have to go to the website, the Apple website, and check some page like investor relations, find some report and read the ESG report, and to check, yeah, you can see here. Sorry, this may be a little bit small, but This is the E section, this is S section, the social section, and this is the governance section. And you find some information you really need, you read the ESG report, and you collect the data and screen the data to find something really useful in your analysis. And then you maybe generate some good ideas like what's commitment of the Apple on water usage? Do they have their own goals about the water management? Or what business activity caused the water waste and water pollution? Like, is it possible the water pollution from the factory, from daily business or supply chain or etc.? And those are things you need to came out with yourself, those good idea. And also you need to do some search. You need to do you need to do some research online, and you need to do some assumption or estimation. And maybe how much the wastewater they released this year and last year, do they have any progress, or did they have any problem with the water management? And today, I'm sorry, this year they released more wastewater, and what happened? And maybe do they have a quantitative plan to save the water? Is the plan really feasible and possible to carry out to help them to avoid the waste of water? You can generate any idea you want based on your data collections, and then using those ideas, you can do the analysis. You can tie them into a logic structure, and then analyze the business activity and the sustainability of the Apple in the water part. And finally, you will do the presentation. And when you're doing the presentation, there's several things. Please remember and keep them in your mind. This is super important. So first one is the time. Time is always important, whatever for the consulting or other business. So you have a time limit to show your work. Please use your time efficiently. And second one is answer the question. This is really, really important. As I said, people always forget what they are doing. So always remember what problem your clients asking for. So stick to the question and answer the question. And third one will be show the logic. So you want your audience to follow you and understand what you're talking about. So please make your presentation in logic. Use the title or subtitle for each slide. That's what I usually do. So using this method, you always can get what I want to say in this slide, and you always have some takeaway keywords. And even though maybe some knowledge I cannot understand as an audience, but at least I need several words and I know your logic. And also the next one will be show the argument. So your opinions and your recommendation is the last part, is the one you will give to your clients. So state this clearly as possible, show your argument to them, and it's totally okay you emphasize for several times about your argument, because that will give them a strong impression for that. And the last one will be show the evidence. You want to make your argument convincing enough, so you have to show your data, you have to show the supporting information, how you get your conclusion, how you get your argument. And also please remember to show the reference, because you want to make sure, and we also, all the audience want to make sure the data you're using is convincing, is reliable. Okay, so after we learn so much things and about the ESG analysis, and you can just dive into your business case. So this year, the business case is about ESG and carbon reduction. So this is a really popular topic, and you can use the framework I mentioned below, but you can also use the other analysis framework, because in ESG consulting and ESG analysis, we always want a new idea to find something hard to find by others. and every details is important equally. So we always welcome you to generate novel idea and novel method to do the analysis. So please feel free to open your mind and be creative. So for the last section, I will give you several hints about your business case. So for first one, because your business case is about the carbon dioxide, the greenhouse gas emission. So I want to give you a background explanation about what is the greenhouse emission. So I chose a graph here. This is really clear. Let's say at the middle of this is a company. So where do the GHG, the greenhouse gas come from during our business activity? So it's separated into 3 types. The type 1 we call scope 1. This is direct emission. So direct emission is when you're doing the business activity, maybe sometimes you use the fuel to burn them and get the heat or other energy. And then during the burning, it will release the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and we call this direct emission. And we also use electricity. So electricity is the indirect emission. Think about that. How can we generate electricity? We also burn fuels. We also burn fuels to generate electricity. So when you are using the electricity, simultaneously you're releasing the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So scope 1 and scope 2 are 2 sources for the carbon dioxide goes into the atmosphere, and those are the activity done by your own company. And there's a scope 3 we call other indirect emission. So these are from upstream activity and downstream activity. So sometimes your material will cause a huge greenhouse gas emission, and also your product will cause a greenhouse emission. So this is scope 3. And because you need to, maybe some of your analysis might want to calculate the carbon dioxide. So you want to know, yes, we use the electricity and we use the fuel. So how can we transform them to the carbon dioxide? I can tell you there is a method, and they will use a factor or several factors to help you to transfer the usage of electricity, materials, and fuels to the carbon dioxide emission. And you can just check it online. And the second hint will be, I recommend you to comparison and search, because ESG concerns a lot of different knowledge. So it's really normal for you to find, when you're doing the analysis, there's a lot of things you don't understand. So please search on Google, and you can also do comparison. I don't mean you, maybe you do a comparison with other team member, but you can do the comparison with somebody who is doing the same work on the internet. You can search some same case or same things there. And I put some links, might be a little bit helpful here. And I don't know whether I can send this slide to you, but I will check with Alex later. And third one will be the same word, stick to the question. Always remember what you are doing and what your clients are asking for. And the last one will be open and creative. So this business case is really, there's no standard answer for the business case. So please be open and creative, find something interesting, find your own solution and your own logic solution, which is really interesting. And we're looking forward to seeing your novel solution, your novel ideas, your interesting thoughts during the business case. And finally, I want to introduce the jury team. And there will be 4 jury from the company, and I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Jinzhou Fan, and I'm doing the ESG Researcher here. And I will be the main jury for this competition, and I think we will meet tomorrow as well. And thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jinzhou, for that very informative and knowledgeable workshop. I think it was very, very beneficial for everyone. And I think, with this, with your help today, they will have a much better sense when they do the business case tomorrow. So I just have one question, actually. Okay, so people are still asking questions, but let's start with the first question from Nepal. So,
Yes.
how do you get data related to GHG emission of companies?
Okay, so I recommend you to read the ESG report, and there first you need to figure out what related to the GHG of the company, and because there is something about the business case, and I just cannot tell you more, but you need to check the definition, and you can check how EPA describe the GHG emission, and then you will know what kind of data you need, and you can find them in the ESG report.
Yeah, okay. And so I hope that answers the question from Nepal. The next question is, hi, I would like to ask, how should we relate the S and G part in ESG to carbon reduction and climate change?
Okay, so S part is the capital sources and also about the community. And the governance is about corporate governance. So when you're doing your, for example, the risk management, the structure of your corporate governance is really important. So I recommend you to read some topics, topics about the corporate governance, or you can just read ESG report, and you will find out there is something in the corporate governance. Yes.
Yeah. And then the next question is from India. So it says lots of companies only publish their overall ESG reports. That means that for Jingdong JD, we get it from JD.com ESG report, but not the one specifically for JD Logistics. Is using that data okay?
Yeah, I think that's okay, because JD Logistics is just one part of Jingdong and I think I give you the link of their ESG report just in case somebody have this confusion.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I guess that is all for the questions. Oh, no, actually, so we just have a couple more. Yeah, so that's fine, guys, but please try to type your questions as fast as you could. We have another about 10-15 minutes for Jindo to answer all the questions. All right. Okay, so the next question from says, it was said that companies' solar panels can provide adequate green energy for 85% of Jingdong's smart industrial parks. So does this mean that 75% of all factories and warehouses energy requirement?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think if I want to explain this, they will relate it to some key of this part, but you are on the right track. Maybe I cannot answer your question directly, but you can search this on Google, and I think you will find the answer.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So a lot of the questions, I think, especially if it's like very related to the academic part of the business case, sometimes probably I understand Jindo probably cannot answer. To not do the job for you. So you need to do a lot of the research yourself. All right. So the next question is, do we have to consider our business partners' ESG approaches as well as they can indirectly influence our company's performance?
I'm sorry, can you say it again? Because back
So
signal.
it basically says, do they have to consider the business partners ESG approaches of Jingdong, because the Jingdong's business partners can also indirectly influence Jingdong's performance?
Yeah, that could be the one of the things you can consider. Again, this business case is really open and creative. So find anything related and you think is important, and just put into your presentation or your analysis.
Okay, all right. So the next question is, why do we need to describe governance social factors if we only ask to suggest improvements on sustainability?
If we only ask to suggest improvements. Oh, so the sustainability includes the governance and the social factors. So when we're trying to make the company the company's development more sustainable, we have to consider environment, social, and governance, these three factors at the same time. So they have a connection with each other. It's not completely separated. So let's take an example. If I want to manage my the wastewater, let's say the Apple's wastewater, of course we can develop some technology and we consider the environmental impact for the wastewater. But of course, if we want to make some plans and we want to make sure our company really working on the environmental problem, we need the corporate governance, right? So we need the management, we need corporate governance. So they are connected.
Okay, all right. Well, the question follows, but the governance factor is different, such as the board of directors. So that's a different factor, apparently.
Yeah, the factors, there's a lot of factors in the corporate governance, not only the board of directors, but also the structure of the board and also the audit or other things. So I recommend you to read the corporate governance section in one ESG report, and you will find there's some connection with the environmental management. Okay.
All right, thank you. And then the next question is, how do we relate social factors with corporate governance, I think?
Oh, yeah. So I think there is also something about capital sources in the social factors. And those things are all connected with the corporate governance. So this question is a little bit similar to the environmental things. So when you're reading the ESG report, especially for the social part, and you will find that at the beginning they will show how they manage things. So that will be connected to their corporate governance. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I see that Xiaomeng Wang's iPhone, so that's a Zoom name, has a question. But if you could type your question in the chat box, that would be greatly appreciated. I see that you've raised your hand. So if let's give it another minute to see if anyone else has any questions. But otherwise, we'll call it the end of this workshop.
Oh yeah. Okay. So let me introduce Xiaomeng Wang is the ESG chef from the Prestige and Fortune Fintech. So maybe he can have some additional comments.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I thought that he's a contestant. Okay, yeah. One sec. Yeah, so I just unmuted you. Hi.
Yeah, I see. No problem. That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just on top of what Jinzhou said, about the relationship between sustainable development, and social and governance. In fact, the definition of sustainable development is not only environment; it's about the social welfare. It's about equality. It's about the accessibility to all the resources. If it's okay for everyone, there's a very important notion is that about the G parts about governance. On top of Jinzhou said about the structure, which ensures the execution of the strategy. There are also one part is the information or how would say it is a stakeholder informative. We need to inform everyone which is concerned about all the environment, about all the social parts, and this kind of thing is defined in G parts. Is governance, if they are aware of that, they have this responsibility to inform the other stakeholder about what is happening, what about the risk, and what about their response, and have they established some kind of a mechanism to receive such feedback from all the stakeholders. So all these parts are part of this G, the governance section. That's why when we talk about everything sustainability, we have to take consideration in the social parts because of this social equality and where with of the social part, and also the insurance from the governmental side. So that's one comment from my side. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wang, for that comment. I hope that clarifies a lot of things for a lot of people as well. So I see that questions are still flowing. So the next question is the framework at the start a framework for thinking or for slides organization? I'm not sure if I understand that question, but Jinzhou, if you understand.
You're referring this?
Mm-hmm.
Gino? Is this?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the framework at the start a framework for thinking or for slide organization? No, this is just a recommendation. So this is how you read this is how we read the ESG ESG report and do the ESG analysis, but this is not a obligation, and it's not a framework for your thinking. It's not a framework for your slide organization. Again, this is just a recommendation. If you are not familiar with ESG, you can start from here, but you can also do something really creative and you can have your own logic. It's totally okay. But following this framework, I can show you how ESG system constructed. I don't know whether I answer your question.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And the next question is, are there any resources about Jingdong because we couldn't find some infos? I think for that question,
yeah, we cannot answer you anymore.
Yeah,
you can try to, because it's listed on, I believe it's Hong Kong Exchange. So you can just try to search more. I cannot answer.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question is, do we have to explain environmental, social, and governance equally, or can we just focus on one aspect?
I think this really depends on the agreement you want to show. So what's your agreement? I won't ask you to ask you to do them equally, because that really depends on what's your topic and what's your argument for your presentation. So if your presentation is about equally comparison, you need equally you need to equally compare those three aspects, and you need them. But if you don't, you can just pick one you need. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we still have a couple more minutes. So the next question is, when evaluating our business strategy, should we make comparisons against international or regional competitors?
Yeah, that really depends on you. I think different people have their different method in ESG analysis. So yeah, that really depends on what you want to do. So I recommend you can generate several ideas, and then based on that, you can find your own method. Someone just using their imagination, someone do the comparison. So different people have different way.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yes.
And then the next question. Let me see if we can answer that question. Can we ask you some info related to the production process of J? Do you think you can answer that question, Jinzhou? Can we ask you some?
I think I cannot answer that question.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Yeah, because if you cannot find some production process of GDL, I believe there is another method, and you can figure it out, or you can just don't use this analysis. So that really depends. I believe you have a method to solve this. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. So that's all the questions we have. And so thank you very much, and thank you to Jinzhou and Mr. Wang once again. And that, I think that was very, very informative, and I think it will help a lot with all the contestants. So once again, good luck on your business case, and let's see the results tomorrow. All right, thank you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
And good luck.
You. Bye.